It was a busy Friday morning at the Lux Motors dealership, a high-end car dealership known for selling luxury brands such as Mercedes, BMW, and Audi. The dealership had been running smoothly for years, and the employees, despite their occasional differences, worked like a well-oiled machine. Among the employees was a janitor named Marcus, a humble man who had worked at Lux Motors for nearly a year. He was quiet, always doing his job without complaint, pushing his broom, emptying trash cans, and keeping the dealership spotless. Marcus wasn't exactly invisible, but he wasn't exactly noticed either. The staff, especially the managerial team, rarely paid much attention to him. He was just a janitor, and for many of the higher-ups, that was all he was, someone who cleaned up after them, someone to dismiss without a second thought. The general manager of Lux Motors, Jake, was one of those individuals. He was a tall, lean man in his mid-40s with a polished appearance and an air of superiority. Jake had been working at the dealership for over a decade and had a long-standing reputation as the guy who got things done, whether it was making a sale or ensuring that the dealership ran smoothly. He didn't have time for people who didn't bring something valuable to the table, and that included Marcus. One morning, Jake had just finished a heated meeting with a few of his senior staff members about sales targets. As he stormed out of the conference room, his mind was still clouded with frustration. As he walked past Marcus, who was mopping the floor near the entrance, Jake scowled. He felt a surge of irritation. The dealership was running late on a few deliveries, and now, with a lot of pressure on him to meet quotas, he snapped. "Can you hurry up with that?" Jake barked, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're not doing anything important anyway. Just move faster. We've got customers coming in." Marcus, who had been lost in his thoughts, glanced up at Jake but didn't respond right away. He was used to such treatment from the higher-ups, but that didn't mean it didn't sting. He simply nodded and went back to his work, continuing to mop the floor in the same slow, measured way he always did. But Jake wasn't satisfied. He stepped closer and leaned down, speaking more condescendingly this time. "You think you can get away with doing the bare minimum around here just because you clean floors? You're not even part of this team, man. You're just a waste of space." Marcus paused, the mop still in his hands, as he processed the words. He had heard similar insults before, but today, they stung more than usual. Without saying anything, he turned back to the task at hand. However, Jake was relentless. He sneered. "What? No comeback? You just gonna stand there and take it? Pathetic." It was then that something in Marcus snapped. His mind raced through a series of thoughts of how often he had been disrespected, overlooked, and disregarded simply because of his role and his appearance. But today, something felt different. Marcus wasn't just some lowly janitor anymore. He had a purpose, a goal, and he wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. Not by Jake, not by anyone. He finished mopping the floor silently, but his mind was in turmoil. Jake, having delivered his harsh words, was already walking off, his back turned. What Jake didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just the janitor at Lux Motors. In fact, Marcus was the new owner of the dealership, having recently purchased the business through a quiet, private transaction. He had changed his appearance and background so that no one would recognize him immediately. He had always dreamed of running a successful dealership, and when the opportunity to buy Lux Motors came up, he seized it. For months, Marcus had kept his identity hidden, doing research on the inner workings of the dealership, learning how it operated, and figuring out the best way to take charge without alarming the staff. He had specifically chosen to keep his janitorial role, not just for the work, but because it allowed him to observe everything without raising suspicion. He saw how the employees interacted with one another, the favoritism, the gossip, and most importantly, the way some people, including Jake, treated the staff below them. He knew that this was going to be a problem once he took over. As Marcus cleaned up, he could feel the weight of the moment, the disrespect he had endured, the looks of disdain, the assumptions people made about him. They had all been building up to this day. He had worked hard for this moment, and he wasn't going to let anyone, especially Jake, forget it. A few hours later, the dealership was bustling with customers test driving cars and negotiating deals. It was a busy day, and Marcus remained in the background, doing his job and observing the scene. Jake, unaware of Marcus's true identity, was barking orders at the staff, pushing them to meet sales goals, and ensuring that the customers were kept happy. Everything seemed normal until the announcement came. The general manager, Jake, was called to the back office by a group of corporate executives. They had just received word from the board of directors. It was time for the big reveal. Marcus had taken the final step in the process of assuming control of Lux Motors, and today was the day he would formally introduce himself as the new owner. Jake entered the office, still wearing his stern, professional look. But when he saw Marcus standing there, dressed in a sharp suit behind a desk with the dealership's name on it, his face drained of color. Marcus smiled, leaning back in a chair. "Jake," he said calmly, "I hope you're enjoying your last day at Lux Motors." It took Jake a few moments to collect himself. He stared at Marcus in disbelief. Wait, Jake stammered. "You're the new owner? You're the guy cleaning the floors?" Marcus nodded. "That's right. I've been here for months, learning everything I can about this place. I know exactly how things run and how some people treat others. And Jake," he paused for a moment, locking eyes with the stunned manager, "I don't tolerate disrespect. Not from anyone, no matter their position." Jake tried to recover, but his arrogance had already crumbled. He had no words. Marcus's calm demeanor was the final blow. He had underestimated the man he had treated like dirt. "You've got two options, Jake," Marcus continued, his voice steady. "You can leave on your own terms, or you can be escorted out. Either way, I'm taking this business to new heights, and I won't let anyone stand in my way." Jake looked around the office, his mind racing. His whole career, his position of power, everything he had worked for, it was all slipping through his fingers. He had no choice but to leave. He stood up, offering no more words, and walked out of the office. Marcus, now in full control, turned to the staff. He knew he had a long road ahead of him, but he was ready. He was no longer the janitor. He was the owner, and the time for change had come.